Welcome everybody to today's version of the webinar. This is a continuation of Viessmann Academy's online training series. For those of you who do not know, the Canadian Academy and the US Academy are now joined together as Viessmann Academy North America. So you will sometimes get US groups, sometimes you'll get Canadian instructors, sometimes you'll get a mix. We had I backed up the one of the US instructors a couple of weeks ago. So the idea here is to provide one level of training and then do that more efficiently with the group as a team. And we're not going to duplicate resources that way. So what we're going to do today is on Vitosoft 300. This is a piece of software that you can get to help you with the controls on the Vitotronic family of controls. Our presenter today is Scott Boutilier. He is our instructor from the Langley office. I'm in Waterloo. My name is Mark Norris. I don't know if I said that. Just a couple of housekeeping things before I give it over to Scott. If you have questions as you go along, you can ask those in the Q&A box. Do not use the chat box. If we prefer that you use the Q&A box, and that reason why that is, it gives us a chance to gather all those questions, and when then questions that we can put together as a PDF, and anybody who is registered or logged in today will get a copy of that PDF with all the questions and answers. So it'll be something that you can carry forward and have a note of. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce you to Scott Boutilier.
Hey, thanks, Mark. And thanks everybody for joining us here today for this little presentation. I don't think it's going to take us an hour to get through this. Just an introduction and overview of the Vitosoft 300. As Mark said, if you have any questions there, he will be manning that while I continue on with the presentation here. So feel free to ask those questions as things come along here. It'll kind of jumble around a little bit with this presentation. There's some format to it, but I thought it'd be good to add some videos and stuff like that to this particular presentation. We'll see how it works out as we move through here and get going. So first of all, we'll have a look at what we're trying to accomplish here today with the group. I want to kind of describe, Mark aptly described a little bit about what Vitosoft 300 is. It is a software device that we have available that if you have used our new one-base platform, which is the B2HE and the B1HE, B1KE, and the CI2 boilers, the new stuff, there is a V-Guide app and V-Care app, that sort of thing that we have available. This is kind of actually predates that as far as I'm going to turn my screen off here so I don't annoy it. There we go. This software platform actually predates all of that. So it's not something new. It's just something that we brought over from Europe to North America, and now I've implemented it. It's available for us here in North America to utilize. Why use Vitosoft 300? Obviously, it's something that's available here. I want to roll through a couple of examples here. Hopefully, that will pique your interest a little bit as to what this software can do for you as an installer or a service technician, so you can kind of get an idea of why it's useful a tool to have in your toolbox. We'll have a look at all the compatible controls and boilers that work with Vitosoft 300. So there is a myriad of boilers. Essentially the whole platform of Vitotronic pretty much will work with this software. I'll look at commissioning a cascade control in a Vitodense system. So we'll have a look at a kind of a run through. I made up a system here and actually connected to an actual cascade and walk through the whole commissioning of it using the Vitosoft. Instead of standing in front of the control and doing all of the startup and stuff like that, I just plugged in and walked through the whole setup that way there. So you'll see me do that in real time here as I go through some of the videos that I captured that information with. And then we'll have a look at, to flip it around a bit, instead of being the installer, if I was a service technician, like instead of commissioning that cascade, now I'm working on the boilers that are connected to the cascade, how I could use this as a service tool as well as a device to commission the system here. So we'll have a look at all those little features as we move through. Hopefully that will give you some interest in what this thing can do. First off is it's a Vitosoft 300 is a software tool. Viessmann developed it for the heating contractor to use when he's in front of, he or she is in front of their boilers or their systems. And we can use that when we're commissioning, as I mentioned already, service and maintaining that Viessmann system. So it's good for boilers, the controls on that Viessmann boiler, as well as the external controls like cascades and stuff that we have in some of the systems. That all works. To optimize those systems, it's really handy. Different features and functions of the Vitosoft 300 you can navigate around, and hopefully I'll show you a few things that are available on this software platform that would be of interest in how we can optimize these heating systems, with carbon taxes and all the things that we're dealing with up here, up north, and I'm sure down stateside as well. It's important to really dial these systems in, even more important than ever now for efficiency. And this will allow us to do that. For diagnosis in the field. So we have this in the field with us, diagnosing system issues becomes that much easier and simpler. There is in my opinion, a great platform on the boilers already, the interface for diagnosis, you navigate around, but plugging this in just adds an additional layer to that capability. And then just to mention what comes in the package. So part of it's kind of a two package system. There is the actual software itself, but you're going to need some hardware. And that's this OptiLink, the USB adapter you see kind of outlined here, plugged into a B2HB or B2HA boiler, a little Vitodense 200, and then the USB connection into your laptop. So you're going to need a USB connection and the OptiLink adapter here to use this. And you can kind of see the age a little bit here. Windows 8 or higher is the requirement for your laptop. And your Internet Explorer would have to be upgraded to at least 11 or higher for this to work and function effectively. So those are kind of some things there. Again, this is not new. It is an older tool, and it does work with some of the older equipment that we'll look at here. As far as why I would want to use it, I think a little bit of what I talked about just a few minutes ago might help kind of get us an idea of why it would be a useful tool for us. But when I plug it in, I'm going to get an overview of the system right off the bat. I'm going to see different values and stuff as soon as I walk in, so I don't have to kind of navigate through the control. It all lays that out, and a nice window there. So your system configuration is going to be plugged in, and you can see the whole thing right in front of you when you open up the system on your laptop. You can import and export data. And thinking about things like for service guys, you got to replace the control console on this Vitodense 200 you're connected to, rather than getting all of the values and information about room temperatures and heating curves and anything set up in cooling level 2 that would be specific to that application. You just have that file already in your Vitosoft 300, and you just export that information and download it into the new control, and away you go. You're back in business. Or a software card and a Cascade does a similar thing. You can import and export that data very easily because you've got it already stored in your laptop. Optimizing the heating system, some things you can do, for instance, when you plug in, you can notice things that have changed over a period of time. So last time you plugged in, the value was this. Now the only value has changed. Did somebody go in and change something there for a reason? It might give you a cue that you might need to optimize or kind of update some few things in your system to kind of getting it operated. So you get some comparisons there from past settings to existing settings in the controls. Diagnostics, as we've already mentioned, good diagnostic tools already on the boiler. Plug this in, you get another level to that. And we're going to have a look at what I'm talking about here as I go through some of the slides in a minute. And then we have trending capabilities, and trending can help with optimization, right? Like, when you trend things, you'll be able to notice is the boiler cycling, some issue with cycling of a boiler. Is the temperature of the boiler way higher as far as the set points and what the system actually requires? all that stuff you can start to see in the trending. Identify issues. Are we reaching set points? Or not? Just a bunch of stuff in trending. I'm going to show you a couple of trends that I did with this specifically for the presentation, but how easy it is to kind of grab those trends, different variables that you can trend, printing that trending off, or and send that say to Viessmann, for instance, for some tech support, whatever you might need to do. And also maintenance activities. So the trending would help with, to identify issues. And as far as the maintenance goes, there is an acceptance report. And what an acceptance report is effectively is every single address and function of that boiler as it sits, or cascade, or Viessmann system you're connected to. All of those, all that information is put into a nice report. And if we have any issues, especially if you're dealing with tech support on a boiler or system, that acceptance report is invaluable. It just gives the tech guy all the information that we would need to kind of identify if there's any issues with programming or what have you in that system causing those inefficiencies or anomalies that you're trying to discover and resolve. Electronic access to device documentation and spare parts lists. So how useful is that to a technician to have the ability of just clicking on a button and opening up that manual when you're in Vitosoft? I'll show you how to load different manuals and documents into your projects. And you have a direct link to the spare parts list down near the end of the presentation. I'll just show you, just click on a button, spare parts list will pop up. I'll show you where to find the boiler serial number. It's actually in the Vitosoft 300. It records the serial number of the boiler, and you just need the first 7 digits of the serial number, and you can use that spare parts list app to grab parts when you're doing your service. And also you have a maintenance log in here. So every time you log into this boiler and you're doing some service or function, you can write down or jot down, just like we have in a real life situation. When you walk into some buildings and they've got a little log there that you write, I was here doing the service on the boilers today, and boiler 2 needs a new igniter, that sort of thing. You can do the exact same thing in your own maintenance log inside of Vitosoft 300, and it essentially keeps that information there into perpetuity, and you can print that maintenance log off. Say you needed it for prove that the boiler had been maintained for warranty or something like that. You've got a very good evidence with this log that there's been ongoing maintenance to the boiler, and just always a really good refresher to kind of look back to see what's been done in that system. So as far as what boilers you can work with, it's more about the control than the boiler specifically. But this kind of gives you a good rundown as far as the residential boilers that the Vitosoft 300 is going to be compatible with. WB2B, so Vitodens 200 boiler go all the way back to WB2B. So there's one other previous generation, the WB2A, which is not compatible in North America, but the WB2B boilers are. It will work with that. The previous generation to the new ones, B2HA, B2HB boilers, the Vitodens 222Fs, the B2TA and B2TBs, there's a couple of different generations of those, all will work. The Vitocrossel 300 CU3A boiler, our high mass residential boiler, also can utilize the Vitosoft 300 and work with it. And then the bottom 4 boilers here, all floor standing. Most essentially, I think, are all discontinued except the Vitodron 100 here. It's more about the control, however, that's on these boilers. So a KW2 or KW3 control in residential, if it's on a atmospheric Vitogas 100, you can plug into it. The old bulletproof Vitola boiler, that was a gas or dual fuel oil or gas boiler. Way ahead of its time as far as a boiler, in my opinion. It also, with a KW2 or KW3 control, would be able to communicate with Vitosoft 300. The oil boiler, Vitoron 100, and the Vitoron 200 gas boiler here, also with this particular control on it, you would be able to utilize the Vitosoft. And when we have cascade systems, multiple WB2Bs or B series 200s or CU3A, the cascades have gone through a couple of generations here, as you can see, but any of these Vitotronic cascades will also will be able to plug into. As a matter of fact, you'll see me do this with the MW2C control on a bank of 2 Vitodens boilers when I do my commissioning here in a few moments. A little screen on the MW2B, which is a little bit different, just kind of showing what that looks like to identify it. And then commercially, you've got a lot of boilers here. that we can work with, old and new. So the CT3 Vitocrossal 300 typically came with a GC1 control on it. We updated some to GC1Bs, or they might have GW2 controls, depending what it is, but they would have those controls built on. And of course, we could connect to those particular controls that are on those boilers. So that's going to work. Vitogas 50s, again, as long as it has a GC1, GW2, they would work as well. Vitoron 200s, VD2s and VD2As typically would have the GC1 control on it, maybe the GW2 or GW2B controls as well. So they're all able to work. CM2s, the earlier versions of CM2s, the first ones did have GC1s on them. Then they went GC1B. I think there's GW5B as well on the CM2 boilers. But the newer generations of CM2s all have GW6B controls, which are programmable as cascades and standalone boiler controls. And of course, the Vitocrossal 300 CA3, CA3Bs with the GW6C controls also, Vitosoft will work with those. And then if you get cascade controls, commercial controls, multiple Viessmann boilers put together, the boilers will usually have GC1s or GC1B controls on them, and then you would connect the cascade to those controls that are connected to those particular boilers. But these Vitotronic cascades will work as well. So it's a pretty broad range of product line. That is a vast range, especially here for North America. We have a lot of installations with these particular controls on it. So this Vitosoft would be quite handy. This is a little video, the first one here, that shows you when I first plug into the control. So I clicked on my little, on the Vitosoft icon on my computer to open it up. And I plugged the OptiLink into the boiler. So there's the little V there that plugs into the V on the control itself. So there's what that V was all about. We plug that OptiLink in. We connect it to our laptop. We click the open button there to open it up. And this is the first screen that you're going to see that opens up for Vitosoft 300. And you have the option here of either creating a new system or clicking on the button there to allocate an existing system. So I'm going to do both in the presentation here. The first one here, we're going to make a new system for the Cascade. And even if you've been in a system previously, you could, if you want, just start a brand new system. If you wanted to scrap that old system and start new, you could just set it up and give it a different name and push OK. And now you're even though you've logged into that boiler before with Vitosoft, it will identify it as a new system when you give it a new name there. So I'm going to change the name here. We're going to start off having a look at Main Street Lunch, a 2-boiler Cascade. This is essentially, I must have been hungry, I think, when I started this presentation up. So we went with Main Street Lunch. Actually, it's an old restaurant back in my hometown. It's closing up, so I thought this would be an homage to the restaurant. So we'll carry on with that. I'm going to be hungry here in a little bit. It's almost lunchtime. So what the Main Street Lunch looks like. So this is the Cascade control that we're at. It's a restaurant, and of course the owners have an apartment on the top floor of that restaurant. They live in the apartment. They've got a 2-boiler system. Just give you a little history about this Main Street Lunch. It's got a Cascade control connecting the 2 boilers together. So this operates as a system. Boilers aren't independent; they're operating with the Cascade as the brains behind the operation. Connected to the Cascade, as far as a system, there will be a heating circuit. So they got some baseboard that is in the restaurant area. So that's heating circuit 1 or A1 circuit, and then we've got a heating circuit 2. And it's a Viessmann system. We have a Viessmann mixing valve and the adapters and stuff like that to the Viessmann system. A HC2 here or M2. It might pop up in the Vitosoft. So we have a 2-temperature system for heating. The boiler system here will fire to achieve the temperature needed for the HC1, the high temperature baseboard, and the mixing valve here will do its work to make sure we throttle back and get the appropriate temperature for the radiant system. We also have a domestic hot water, and we've got a domestic hot water recirc pump we're going to program into this. So we'll essentially be programming all this to the Cascade in our setup. Just to give you a review of, good to get an idea of what we're actually programming here. So this is when we first plug in and the control is uploading the information from whatever control. This is the cascade I'm plugged into. And you can see it pulls everything. You see solar in here, M2, M3, all of that information is being pulled out of the control. But after a few moments, it will update and it will only pull the data that's actually being utilized. So the M3, we don't have a mixing circuit 3. We don't have solar connected. And you can see here now as I scroll through, all you see there is the cascade. You see HC heating circuit 1, the A1 circuit, the M2 circuit, domestic hot water are part of this of this setup. So it essentially knows what has already been pre-programmed, and that's the information that is just loaded into Vitosoft 300. So what other stuff can we see on this little screen as far as overview? So up in the top left-hand corner, you can see I'm clicked on highlighting here an overview, and this is the first screen we usually see. And you can see what's communicating with the cascade right now, what devices are communicating in here. And we haven't set it up yet. Looks like the boilers haven't been programmed into multi-boiler and all that kind of stuff yet. So it looks like one boiler has been, but the rest haven't. And we've got what's communicating. We'll see faults, any faults on the control that you're working with right now. And right now it says like we've got some boilers that aren't logging in. That's because it's still looking for 7 boilers. We only have 2. Remember, we haven't actually done the commissioning yet. We also see a bunch of values here, and this is read-only an overview. So we can't actually edit anything here, but it kind of gives us an idea, a screenshot of what the control has been programmed at, and maybe gives us an idea of what things we might want to change when we get into the commissioning. Refresh button up in the top right-hand corner. If I click that little the 2 arrows here, they'll activate the refresh, and it'll update. And typically, when you first plug in to a brand new system, you don't really have to update, but it's when you've already been into that system and you open it up again later on, maybe that day or maybe a year from now, you might want to hit the refresh button to make sure that you're getting the most current data. And I'll show you, I do this actually in the service portion of the presentation here in a bit. And then any grayed out areas here. So you see these all M2 here still grayed out. It's being updated. So every so often, you might notice that values go gray and then they darken up again. That's just because the control is updating any information that is in there. So there's a continuous update as the control kind of pulses and gathers information and updates those particular values. Now, if I hover over things, if you're not used to commissioning Viessmann systems and you want a little bit of definition of what you're actually programming here, you notice as I'm hovering over these areas, you can see different definitions of what you're actually programming, what the slope is, the heating curves and stuff like that. And just to point out here, I just like how they define a Viessmann heating curve. Most heating curves are like this. You've got a slope, which is the steepness of the curve, and the level or the shift, we sometimes call it here in North America, is the calibration point. So every heating curve is fairly generic. And the calibration is how you dial that heating curve into your actual system. So the idea behind just setting a heating curve and leaving it, you're leaving a lot of room on the table there for optimization, right? So that level area is one that I usually go back to quite often when I'm trying to really dial in or optimize my system there. So just kind of pointing that out. But as you hover over these areas, you'll be able to see those different definitions that kind of help you out to move through there. And you'll see it again here as I go through some of the different areas. You'll see some definitions pop up. Now, I'm going to go from overview to commissioning, and we go to set parameters for commissioning of the system. And I'm going to talk about commissioning here, coding 2, and all codes. I'm going to leave the parameter comparison and the parameter sets for another presentation. I think it'd be worth doing a couple presentations on this software as we go through, kind of drilling a little bit deeper in different areas. But first off, we'll do commissioning parameters. And we're going to open up here. I can show all the groups. So these are just all the groups essentially that you would be commissioning. And commissioning is just a few values in coding that are important to change when you're commissioning. You can open up the areas individually. If I click on the little pencil there, that's where I can edit different areas. So every group you can edit as we move through here. And it just shows you just a few addresses, really. You don't have to change a lot. As a matter of fact, some of these are being picked up based on what sensors are connected. So you're just confirming that those are the correct values for those different addresses of commissioning. We're going to open up the Cascade here side of it and just set up the program for the Cascade. So in this little window up here, if you want to put a reminder in what the system is, you don't have to do this, but it's available there to put some sort of information in that little window. I selected 2 boilers instead of 7 to make the adjustment. I'm going to make an adjustment to the maximum system temperature. We only want 70 C max for the baseboard. That's not a max boiler temperature. That's the system side of it. So it's just going to adjust it to 70 C. Won't go any higher than that. Do I want the boilers to rotate, or do I want lead, fixed lead, fixed lag boilers? You make all that adjustment here for the Cascade. And all this definition stuff would be in the manual if you need any reference for that information. So we're going through there. We have different control strategies that are available in Viessmann Cascade system. So we'll stay with the condensing strategy, gross calorific. And then we can turn, the central pump on if we have one, for instance, on just for demand or continuous operation. And then there's some blocking based on temperature for your cascaded boilers. We're not going to touch that stuff. So I hit the save button. I wait for the current value there to change to the entry, hit the back key, and now I'm back in, and I can now go to another area grouping of the commissioning here in the Cascade. So I went ahead and did identified A1 as my baseboard zone and made my adjustments there as far as things like priority for domestic, when the warm or the shutdown point is going to be 1 degree temperature outside is a degree higher than the room temperature desired. It's going to put the system into warm weather shutdown. You've got just a couple of mins and maxes there for your flow temperatures and some other values there for things like night setback, getting yourself kicked out of night setback. All those things have been adjusted. Here's my radiant floor. So there's my M2 circuit, same kind of idea, just setting up those values. And then there's some domestic hot water values here. Not really a lot that you really adjust in the DHW area here in the commissioning. It's more in the operation area. You're going to see here in a minute when I set that up. And now I can go to just a review here. I finished all those parameters. You can see all of the, the information I keyed in there, the 2 boilers, the baseboard zones, 120-gallon storage tank and radiant panels. All that stuff is kind of the stuff I added into that area. So let's skip down to coding level 2. And effectively, it looks the same as what we just looked at as far as the commissioning side of it. But what coding level 2 is for is just you've already did most of your commissioning in those parameters, but if you want to fine tune some specific addresses, we can go to coding level 2. It opens it up into the general DHW, the different groups based on what you have connected to the system here. And same idea, I can show the groups, but now you're seeing a lot more of the addresses. So essentially all of coding level 2 and the Cascade is sitting here. Excuse me, that's your general information. As we go through, you see your domestic and all your mixing valve stuff, your A1 circuit, all of those values are in there. Just waiting for you to add whatever values you want to change there. So you can see some of those definitions as I hover over the different values. And the little pencil is my edit button. And you can see I have all these potential addresses I can adjust here. So whatever things I want to kind of fine tune for my system, I can do it right here in the coding level 2 outside of just commissioning. So there's your, the different values you can make adjustments to. If I was to open up the actual service manual for the Cascade and go to coding, you can see there's the address 00 and there's the address 00. So all we're doing is going right from, in the manual here, all the coding addresses. You're doing the exact same thing here, other than standing in front of the boiler and flipping from one value to another. You're doing it all on the screen as you're going ahead. There are some domestic hot water values that we've made some adjustments to. And if I go to all codes down the bottom, it's essentially, you have the choice of either going to coding level 2, which you just looked at, or all codes. All the same addresses, but with all codes. it just goes sequentially. So it goes from 0, 0 all the way to the bottom, which is like F12 or something like that, I think is the last one. I guess that's what we got there, FA or something like that. So instead of going into the groups, which you see in coding level 2, we just looked at this. It opens up all the codes in one sequential thing, and you can just basically go through the list to make those changes as you wish in that area. So the next area we're going to have a look at is setting up the operation. So we commissioned the control, told it how many boilers, we did heating curve adjustments and stuff like that. We could do some similar stuff here in the operation as well. But this is essentially setting up like your heating circuits for, just to confirm all of the different values in there for room temperatures. You'll see here we can edit that stuff. And we also are going to set up the timing programs for with Viessmann systems. Every heating circuit gets a time program. Your domestic hot water gets a time program. Recirc pumps connected to the control will get a time program. And we just go to this one area in the Vitosoft, and you can do all of this adjustment right here in that particular area. So I'm going to do a little quick setup here. We're going to A1. I'm not going to bother putting in anything in there, baseboard or whatever. We'll just leave that. But we're going to change the operating mode first off, so it goes into normal operation. We'll change some of the normal room temperatures that essentially tell the boiler, or the system your target information. The domestic temperature at 50 is good. We're going to leave the domestic hot water temperature at 50C. We're going to make some adjustments to the heating curve. We're going to take that level or that shift down to 0. We're going to use that for calibration throughout the operation of the system there. We can manipulate that a little bit later on. We'll leave the base value there for the heating curve in. And we'll save that information. And we'll go, once it gets changed there, we go back. And then we'll go over and we will change the time program. So we'll go over to HC1 or A1 and click the little pencil to edit. And the first thing you want to know is, what dates you're going to use. So we're going to go all days, so Monday to Sunday. And we want to put a 24-hour time program in here. So we're going to stay in normal operation 24 hours a day. So I'm just going to key this in here. So 00, it's a 24-hour clock in the Viessmann world, 00 to 2400. Click the down button and then click the save. And once Monday to Sunday gets checked up in the top left-hand corner of that little time clock, we have just written in our new time program. So you can click the back. And now we're just going to do the same for our domestic hot water, our recirc, and our mixing valve. So I went ahead and did that. So there's my domestic hot water time program, Monday to Sunday, 24 hours a day. I did the recirc pump here. I did it for 2 time periods. So Monday to Friday, it goes on from 5 in the morning till 9 in the morning. It shuts off the recirc pump until 5 at night until 10 o'clock at night. And then on the weekends, it goes from 5 until 10 o'clock at night there. So you can make some of those adjustments there. And then the mixing valve circuit there, I made the adjustments to my heating curve and operation and room temperatures and the time program for 24 hours. And away you go. Now we're finished essentially finished setting up the cascade as far as operation. As you're making those adjustments, they change in the control in real time. And I'm going to print off the acceptance report here now. So when I click on this icon here, it takes a while. It's a lot of data that's being pulled out of the control that goes into the acceptance report. Like I say, it's pretty much everything that we would need to know about how that control is set up. We'll view it here. Again, that's going to take a while for that to download. I'm just going to give you a little click. It just shows you the table of contents essentially. So it's a fairly impressive document that gets printed off here that we view. And we've had this in the past where people have had some issues, anomalies in the system. They're trying to figure it out. We get Vitosoft in there. We print off our acceptance report, and then we have a detailed information on all the different parameters that you can see here that are available for us to have a look at. Now, if you want to export that PDF, we can click on the export PDF there, and it takes a bit of time for this to download it. And but the report now is in the PDF form, which is fairly easy for us to utilize and kind of send. click the download button. Of course, you can save it. You can open it again, whatever, and save it in a file, and then you can ship that off to Viessmann or to your boss, whatever it might be that they're looking for, to say that this is the commissioning of this control. This is what I set up, and he can have a quick review of that as well. And now we're finished the commissioning. You can see the boilers are communicating. There's no faults. All your updated information is sitting in here, all dark and highlighted. So now in the overview, you see a different kind of setup of what that looks like when we're finished the whole setup of the system there. So all the faults have been sorted, boilers have been connected, everything's been confirmed, and now all of our new values are now inputted into here, and we are essentially set that cascade up for success moving forward. Because now, as the contractor, we could also utilize that this Vitosoft now to maintain and service this system. So we've commissioned it. Now we're going to service it. In this instance here, what I'm trying to replicate is we've already been to this site before, and it's a Vitoden's B2HA 285 at 6352 4th Street in Langley, pretty close by to where I am. And instead of creating a new system, I'm just going to open up this allocate the existing system, or open up an existing system. So I click on the little button here. I find this one in my list of projects, push the OK button. And now you'll see I might want to update here because it might not be accurate because I've been in the system before. I click the refresh button, and then it updates itself here now to the new time. So I'm looking at the most current values that are connected to that that are on that particular boiler. You can see this is just a boiler and one heating circuit. There's no domestic. You don't see any DHW. You don't see any mixing valves. So in the overview, you see exactly what this boiler is connected to. That's what it looks like. I just made a little drawing of what that is. So it's a single boiler, and it's essentially we've got 5 floors of baseboard. So each floor has its own pump, and of course there's different zones. The baseboard just representing what it is up there. And of course, variable speed pumps here to adjust speed as we got zones opening and closing, and that level 5 of the baseboard or what have you. So a bit of a commercial system. When I go into just on the left-hand side here, I go to system equipment. In device and accessories, effectively what would be here is anything that the Vitosoft is connected to as a device will show up in here. So if we would have done this with the Cascade, you would have saw the Cascade and the boilers here. Important to note quickly, in this area, in device and accessories, this serial number is the boiler serial number, and that first 7 digits will be the first 7 digits you're going to need in the parts list or in the parts app to identify this boiler and to get the spare parts you're looking for. So just make a note of that area. Dropping down to documents in here, there's nothing in here. I'm going to open up and create a new document. So I already saved the service manual. So I'm going to go into new document here and search. And it's going to pop open a link in my laptop here. I go to downloads. This is where I save the document. It looks at the Vitoden's 200 service instructions, and I can open that up. I can put a note in here, service. So I got to spell it correctly first. So I'll have to go back and spell it correctly. So my one finger typing at its best here. So service manual, click save. And now I've got this document in here. So if I want to, if I need to check what's the distance between the mesh and the ionization electrode, I can quickly just highlight and click on that, and it's going to ask me to open it. So I'll go ahead and open that. And there's the service instructions there. I can just go now in a PDF form and load that. So what I could do effectively, as I want to, is every time I can load up a new manual here to make sure that when I'm on site, I load the most recent manual for that particular boiler into that particular area. If I scroll down here from operation to operating log, in this area, you can see I kind of tried to fool it a bit. You can't fool it because it timestamps everything here. So you see I made all these entries in the same day, but you could imagine, the first day you installed and started the boiler up, you can make that note. You came back for, there's a leak in the system, a couple months later, and you fixed a relief valve or something like that. there's the service call to top up the pressure. There's the leak, service the boiler when you replace the electrodes, all that stuff. Every year or whenever you go in and you do service, you write the service log. You just create a new entry by clicking entry here, and it's going to add the entry in there. If I need to print this off, for a proof of warranty or proof of service, or the homeowner is asking, I would like the history of what you've done to the boiler, export that PDF, and here you go. This is what's happened with your boiler since day one of its operation. So really handy, in my opinion, for the service guys to have that log in there. We can go down to diagnosis, and in diagnosis here, there is the device data. What I'm going to, you've got plant diagnosis. You can see all the different variables here. We're going to look at plant diagnosis. And effectively in plant diagnosis here, this is a screenshot of what it is. I always find diagnosis is one of those, if you call tech support, one of the first things they're going to ask you to do when you're troubleshooting is, let's go to diagnosis and see what this boiler thinks it's supposed to be doing currently. So you're going to see things like the outdoor temperature, what the boiler set point actual temperatures are. You can see the sensor inputs or feedback as far as what the sensors are doing here. You'll get a list of if there's any issues with sensors as far as problems right here. And if you got any external influences on the EA1 module, 0 to 10s or blocking, anything else like that's causing some issues, you'll see it down here in the bottom as far as the function of the EA1 module and on this particular boiler. So a real good snapshot of the system. You have diagnosis on the boiler as well, but you have to go to each individual area. This kind of loads it up for you here, and you just scroll down, you can see the whole thing in this one area. So I find it really useful when we're doing that side of it. Actuator test, I left the noise on for this one so you can hear it, but I'm connected to a boiler right now. I'm going to start a relay test. And this is the B2H85 in our lab. And I'm just going to go hit the boiler and start it in low fire. So you'll hear the boiler fire up here in a moment. That's the fan kicking in. And that's firing up. And then I'm going to turn it off. I'm just going to go click turn the internal pump on instead. So you hear the burner shut off. But this is very valuable in troubleshooting because I can navigate around the control well in actuator test. Typically, if I stand in front of a boiler and do actuator test, as soon as I leave the screen of actuator test, so does the boiler stop doing what I was forcing it to do. So sometimes I want to fire the boiler in low fire, but I might want to have a look at some other areas of the system while it's in low fire. So a good example would be, for instance, if I'm plugged into the boiler and here it is, the burner is on. I've got it on right now in low fire, and I can go to cooling level 2, and I can go to boiler here, and I can have a look at those Lambda addresses for flame signal and all the different values we have in there about on the B2HA and the WB2B and the CU3A boilers that have that particular function. So it's very, very handy for you to do different things. And then you can be in different areas of the actual interface of the boiler and looking at different areas there to see how things are reacting or responding. So I find that really valuable in the troubleshooting process. Let's get out of that. There we go. And then we have going down from actuator test to trends. With trending, you can see depending on what you have here, it's the boiler. So you see all the different boiler things, temperatures, flame signals, set points and actual temperatures. The heating circuit connections here, EA1 module, all these points I can pick. I can select all, like you see here, or deselect. Going through there. Typically recommend, I think it's more than about 10 points, just because the graph gets a bit busy. And sometimes you lose the trees because of the forest, you know what I mean? So sometimes it's better to be very specific on what you're trying to track here as far as operation and pick those. Once you pick the trends that you're looking for or the values you want to trend, you just click the show. And it's going to bring up that new trend. And we'll have a look at one in operations here. So this is a new trend I just clicked on. About every 10 seconds, it's refreshing. So you'll see this actually start to open up here. And of course, it doesn't look all that impressive right now, or we've been monitoring for about 30 seconds here. But you start trending over a period of time, you're going to start to see, all those things kind of graph out here as we move through. So right now we're looking at things like the boiler temperature, set points, the flame signal, the pump is on, how many burner cycles, all that stuff are being monitored. Now, this is a trend. As long as you plug this in and do trending, you can trend it for as long as possible. As long as your laptop, doesn't go to sleep while it's connected, it will continue to trend and log the information. So this is over a weekend. I did this a couple of weeks ago, and you can see, mapping, all the different values here, and you can see that trend log as we go through here. And the whole idea is that you can start to pick up any kind of areas or issues that you're trying to, sort out in your system here. Is that burner cycling at certain times? Is it overshooting temperature? Are we not meeting set point? Those types of things as we move through. And then once you identify the problems, it's a lot easier to start to address them, right? If you know what the problem is, it's very difficult. This is an existing trend, so it's already happened. I'm not trending anymore. It's just been logged and I saved it and kept it. It's the same trend we just looked at, but I can open it up again. If I want to expand out on it, like look at hone in a specific little area, I just right click or left click that and drag it. And now I've opened that up a little bit larger. So now I can kind of have a look at a little closer what those trends are doing as far as temperature. And I can keep diving deeper and deeper by expanding out like I just did with the left arrow key. If I want to print, on the top right-hand corner is a little print icon. And then I go to PDF here. And now I can print this off as a PDF, maybe connect it to the acceptance report, send that off to Viessmann tech support and say, here's that situation we're discussing. Here's some information on this particular setup on the system. So very useful as far as the trending. As far as the Viessmann spare parts app, on the control here, if I'm looking for parts, you don't have to get out of Vitosoft. You have two areas here. There's actually a third one, but I'll talk about these three. Spare parts app on the top, as well as spare parts list on the bottom here. You just have to click on that area, and it's going to open up a new window for you, and it's going to be the Viessmann spare parts app. And I took the 7-digit number, 7554705, which is the first 7 digits of the Viessmann, or of that boiler serial number, which I saw in the documentation in Vitosoft, and entered it in here, clicked on it, and now I can go to spares. I can identify that burner gasket. I'm looking for that flame rod, all that fun stuff I can pick out. I can then put it in my little shopping cart, and then I can email it off really simply to my local wholesaler. And I've got the right part numbers for that particular boiler. I know when I get those parts from the wholesaler, they're going to be the correct parts when I get on site. No issues whatsoever. So it's kind of like one-stop shopping with this Vitosoft 300 when you're doing your service. So I know the most biting question that we've got out there for all the attendees is, how do I get my hands on a copy of this Vitosoft 300? Well, let me tell you, friends. We've got the two areas here I want to hone in on. In inventory at Viessmann right now, we've got the OptiLink USB adapters. They come in a little box, part number 7438374. Write that down. And you can order that from your local wholesaler, and they'll ship that to you. As far as the software itself, it's downloaded as a trial software. You get a 90-day trial. So there is the link. If you grab your phone right now, you can take a picture of this QR code. We'll take you right to the link here, and you can load or download that 90-day free trial of the software right there. And you're going to need this, obviously, USB adapter to use it. So you can have the download, and then you can grab the dongle there, and then you're off and running for 90 days. After 90 days, if you think it's something that's going to be useful to you, I think you will find it very useful as you start getting into it and digging into a little bit deeper. You can continue on. You have to contact Viessmann to get a license, and you'll also get a nice commemorative DVD as well with the license that you can keep free of charge from Viessmann. The DVD has a license on the back of it, so that's essentially what it is. Again, this is not brand new, technology. It's been out for some time, but that's essentially how you do it. You can get the dongle, order that from your wholesaler, and you can download the free app after 90 days. You need to order the license from Viessmann, and then you can continue on using that Vitosoft 300 software the rest of the time. All right, so that is my little introduction and overview of the Vitosoft software here. I'm going to turn my video back on here. How are things there, Mark? Did we have any questions? And by the way, oh, sorry, man.
Sorry, go ahead.
The QR code there, it's on the screen now, is not for a free trial. That's to put me on trial. So if you want to click on that one, that just rates the in a Google form, you can rate the presentation for information and the instructor, that kind of stuff. And just so we can improve, continuously update and improve our presentations to you guys. So thank you very much for joining us. And now I'll go back to my original question, Mark. How are things?
We had a bunch of questions. Most of them were related to interfacing remote or interfacing with heat zones and things like this on the control.
Okay.
I think I answered this correctly, but I'm going to get you to verify it.
Sure.
Heat zones are not supported in the software, correct? It's just heat circuits.
Just heat circuits, correct?
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
I was pretty sure of that, but I thought I'd ask, and I set the question to tech, but they were in a meeting, so they didn't answer me.
Okay. We will definitely confirm that 100%, but that's, yeah, I get that. I get the
and one of the reps, brand new question came in. He wants to know if there's special pricing for reps. I think he has to talk to the sales manager for that.
Depends on the rep, I guess.
Right? Yeah. Some reps some reps might get a deal, others may not. Depends on how good they are.
We might charge extras to some reps and
that's right. We
less
could,
to other. It's a balancing act, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. We certainly. The idea is that if you're a rep for Viessmann, having this as an extra tool in your kit is going to be invaluable for sure. So yeah, I think that's probably something that's a fair question. And something if a contractor sees a rep using this and all of a sudden he's like, hey, what's that look like? Oh, it's kind of interesting. Then of course that you tell two friends, they tell two friends, and so on and so on and so on, right?
Well, you're just full of those today, aren't you?
I know.
Just full of those little right out of social
total left
commentary.
Exactly.
Just new question.
That's how I roll. New question.
Are all codes accessible?
Not all codes, but the predominant codes that you're going to need for specifically for your commissioning and 95% of your servicing, that sort of thing, would be available here. I haven't had any issues with addresses that I needed that weren't available in Vitosoft. And we've been using this internally. When's the first time you had it, Mark? Probably what, 2010?
Well,
2011?
I had it ages ago, and I didn't. And then at that time we weren't distributing it because a lot of it was in German, and it did have all the codes in it, which almost made it dangerous because you could actually tell the control it was something else.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think they streamlined it to be used for contractors, and so yeah, there's a lot of codes in the background of the control that you would never need, but engineering might need. And so anything that you would normally need to program the boiler or see what's going on in the boiler are in the controller, but not all codes are in there. There's dozens of codes in there that you could really seriously mess up a boiler if you program the wrong one.
Yeah, I guess what you have to understand is it's a platform. It's a control platform that's applied to a specific boiler, right? So there'll be some addresses that are very relevant to that boiler that are still encoding that wouldn't be relevant to another setup like a cascade. Those values would still be in there. They just wouldn't be, they wouldn't be of any function or value. So there's lots of addresses, but not all of them are really relevant to what we're trying to achieve there.
So I have a new question says, and I'm not sure what they're actually asking, which says altitude and gas conversion. I don't think altitude was ever a question in the Vitotronic control.
No.
Gas conversion.
Gas conversion, I believe.
I guess there was an address for lower high altitude.
There was in the higher low altitude, but also in some boilers there's a special coating plug as well, right? That you would use for higher altitudes and stuff.
For the older ones, yeah, those ones probably wouldn't be good, yeah. But if it's a software point in coding 2 that you would have programmed anyways, it should be available.
It should be available in here. And again, like I say, specific to boilers. I know, for instance, some boilers, there is an address for conversion from natural gas to propane and vice versa. Other boilers, you'd have to pull out the orifice and physically do an adjustment of that. So they're probably, that one there would be a two-step type of a phase, right? Where you've got to physically remove the gas valve, put an orifice in there, and make those adjustments. Where some of the newer boilers is strictly just a program and maybe a turn of an orifice or something like that to make that happen. So
Yeah, and
some of
this
those things,
this
it's not
software
quite
goes back
automatic.
to the software goes back to most of the older Vitotronic controls too. So there are some that, there's been a lot of advances with Lambda Pro and everything else since Vitotronic came out. So it
Exactly.
depends on the generation of the control,
Yeah.
whether that
Yeah.
was available.
Yeah.
There's certainly
And
not as many coding addresses for an older, JW2 than there is for a B2HA.
exactly. Yeah. Very different. They're a different profile for sure. But like my plan is here. I've done this kind of main video, but I would like to do some shorter videos in the future of different areas I haven't dug into on the intro. So digging down, there's some really good diagnostic stuff for Lambda, for instance. There's some other areas I really wanted to get into on how to export and download from one control to another control so that all that stuff is documented. So when people need to do that stuff, there'll be some sort of a instruction in a video form that they'd be able to do that successfully. So this is just kind of the start to what I plan on doing with the Vitosoft. It just depends on how popular it is. If there's not really a lot of demand for it, then we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. But I think it is a valuable tool that we can get guys out there using, especially now that guys are more used to this stuff in our world, right? With a lot of boilers, not just our new stuff, but a lot of manufacturers come out with apps and stuff for their boilers. People are kind of getting more used to that logging of stuff. So I think now this might have been a little bit ahead of time. Now it's an appropriate time for guys to start to use this. And it's
And
good for service. It's good for new. Yeah.
there was a question regarding whether there was ever going to be a version for Android or Apple or apps, and I don't think we'll see that with this
I don't
generation.
think, but I do hear rumblings that there would be some sort of screen sharing capability where it would be from the profile tech support, where you're on site, for instance, and you call tech support, where they'd be able to log into your Vitosoft 300 and then kind of take over your screen, right? So kind of navigate around and stuff like that. That's kind of what I've heard that there's some future look in that. So it's not like it's here it is, this is all you get. They're still kind of working on some of that stuff, but yeah, I think a lot of the actual software itself is kind of this is what we got, and this is
Yeah.
how you use it. Yeah,
Any remote access will always have to come with, permissions and
exactly.
security protocols and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, so it'd take a little bit of time for that to get sorted.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna
See you
clear
next
the
time.
screen. Bye now.